The best feature about Zotero is its ability to create correctly formatted citations in a reference list or bibliography. There are a couple of different ways to do this, but in this video we're going to be focusing on the add-on to Google Docs. And just a note before moving on, I am currently working on a Windows system and I'll be using Firefox. So again, my screen might look different if you're using a Mac or other operating system or another browser. So the way that the Google add-on works is that you have to add the Zotero browser connection to your browser. You're also going to need to grant authorization from your Google account, and then you're going to need to have the Zotero desktop program running at the same time. And we'll show you what happens and how to kind of connect all this stuff in just a minute here. But what's really nice about this add-on is that it's going to give you options on citation styles as well as the ability to easily switch between different ones. However, there is a drawback that it is not available on other Google products like Slides, but again, there are additional ways to get citations and references onto those using Zotero as well. So from the Zotero downloads page here, you're going to install the connector. It is available on several major browser programs. However, it is recognizing that I am on Firefox, so I'm going to go ahead and click install and follow this process here. And I'm asking it to pin to my toolbar, so say excellent, and so there it is at the top. So it's really that simple to install it. Once I go over into a Google Doc like this, you'll notice that Zotero has automatically been added to my menu bar up at the top. And then to make sure that I've got everything sorted for this, I'm going ahead and click on it and I'm going to ask it to add a citation. And it will first ask me and have a pop-up here to ask if my Zotero desktop application is running. So I'm actually going to need to open up my Zotero desktop program here, and I'll pull it up and say, here, it is running, so we're good to go. And so I should say, okay, now. And then once I go up here, it's also going to ask that I grant it permissions from my Google account, which I'm going to do. Now that we have everything set up, I want to actually add in a citation. So I'm going to go up to my Zotero menu, click Add or Edit Citation, and because this is the first time I am adding a citation, it's going to ask me what my document preferences are. Mainly what style I want to use. So in this case, I want to use APA, but if I did want to choose a different one or even manage styles from this menu, I could do that as well. But for right now, we're just going to stick with APA and say okay. And then it's going to open up your Zotero library in this little box here. Now, there's a couple different ways to search in this. You can actually scroll through and look through your library in a format like this. We can also go to a list format. In this list view, you actually are going to be required to kind of search for things. So it could be by an author's name, it could be by a topic. So for example, if I wanted to grab this one and I'll say okay, it's going to add in that citation there in its format. Okay. Say if I wanted to grab multiple items, I can do that as well. So again, put my cursor where I want my citation to go, and then I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the library list and show you what that looks like here. So if I go in and to the video demos and say I want this one and I want this one, and I can also move these around. So say, for example, Lee needed to come first in a particular multi-item citation. I could do that and click update. So the order of your authors is going to depend on the style that you're using, and actually in APA, it's going to want us to keep it in alphabetical order for the most part. So I'm going to switch this back here. So you can go in and edit these once you've, after you've put them in initially here. And then also, if you needed to put in a specific, like a page number or using a particular part of a citation, you can do that as well. So if I go again, edit citation, and we're going to use Willis this time. And once I select this, there's this little drop down arrow here, and I can add in a page number, or if it's a different type of portion, so like a timestamp or a figure or even like a chapter that I want to do, I can add that, but I'm going to keep it as page number for right now and say that I want to do this on page 16. I can also add prefixes and suffixes. Prefixes come before the citation. So I can add in like as cited in this. I could add in a suffix, which is going to come after, and say like see also, so on and so forth. And in this case, there's another one that I'm actually going to use here, because in the sentence that I'm putting this quotation in, I use the author's name as a subject. I'm going to actually omit the author, so I'm only including that date and page number, and say okay. And so I do have that ability there. Now, when I want to add in my full bibliography, typically in APA, that's going to be on a fresh sheet, but just for this demo, I'm going to keep them kind of together so you can see them. Again, I go up to my Zotero option here, and I'm going to add or edit a bibliography. And what it does here is it adds them all in alphabetical order, just like I want it to. I can also continue to add in citations to my reference list. So in the second paragraph here, I'm going to again add in a citation, and we're just going to add in one here and say okay. And it will maintain that alphabetical order going forward, which is wonderful. Now, one thing to note is that you are definitely going to need to double check these references. So for example, this last one that I just integrated here, I noticed that the title is in the wrong case. It is in title case, not sentence case. I also see that there is a database listed here, which I don't need in APA. So I could go through and edit this as I go along, and delete out PubMed here, along with making sure that everything's here. But what's going to happen is when I either close out of this document and reopen it, or if I go back up to Zotero here and click refresh, it just reverts back to the citation before I made those changes. So it's actually going to be necessary to go into my Zotero library, into this Arnaud, and then make the changes in the Zotero itself by deleting out that database name and changing the title here. Once I've made those changes in my Zotero library, I can go back into my document and again click refresh, and those changes will be reflected. So again, we've gone from title case to sentence case, and then that database name of PubMed is no longer in that first reference. One of the most powerful tools that we have with Zotero is its ability to switch in between different citation styles. So at the beginning of this tutorial, I had my document preferences set to APA, but I'm actually going to switch over to AMA just to show you the true differences that you'll see, because AMA uses an EndNote system. But again, any other style that you want to switch to, you're able to as well. So I'm going to select OK after I've changed that, and then you'll notice that we have switched over to a superscript EndNote, and then I'm going to need to do a little bit of cleanup to kind of move the parentheses or the punctuation and the spacing around to make this correct. I'll probably also need to edit my number 4 citation here, because APA or in AMA you don't actually have page numbers in that in-text citation there. So I can do a little bit of that, and you'll also notice that the order of the references has switched from alphabetical by author to when the item was used. So that Arnaud is number 5 because it's the 5th citation. So again, with a single click and a little bit of cleanup, you can really switch in between these different styles without needing to do it manually yourself. So incredibly useful. And again, you can go back and forth kind of as many times as you want. So if I wanted to switch back to APA, I could do that. Again, I'm going to need to do a little bit of cleanup around where periods and stuff are. And for example, this Willis option here, I'm going to need to go ahead and go back in and add in that page number as well as omit the author. But pretty seamless. The last thing that you're going to want to do is at the very end, when you're getting ready to turn this article into a journal or turn it into your professor, you're going to want to go ahead and unlink your citations. And what this is going to do is it's going to take out any of the kind of coding, behind the scenes kind of metadata and things that connect your document to Zotero. Now, this is something that you cannot change and you can't reconnect things. So I often suggest that you actually save a copy with the link citations and just have like if you ever need to go back through the editing process to say update it, so having a working copy and then having a submission copy, because again, you can't, like, the field codes won't be there. So once I click OK, and I try to do this and change anything in here that's connected to Zotero, it's just going to be kind of live in this document. If you have any questions about using Zotero, please ask a librarian or check out Zotero's documentation pages. And thank you for watching.